everything is an opportunity. So while you're relying on yourself, when your back is against the wall, and you've heard me say this before, that's when you become the most creative. That's when you figure out that you have a gear for resiliency and resourcefulness that you didn't even know you had. That's when things really start to define themselves with regard to your ability to manage situations. Whether you blow a situation completely up, you have nothing to lose at that point, and rebuild it in a new light. Whether you use this to extreme negotiate, because again, you've got nothing else to lose. Everything is an opportunity. Hi, everyone. My name is Pete Ferrari. Welcome once again to the SuperSelf podcast series. As we know, this series surrounds all things that are good health and well-being. It is our hope that you find at least a couple of kernels of wisdom in every single episode as we all try to find a better quality of life. Today, we're going to talk about relying on yourself. One of the most important precepts on the entire spectrum of good health and well-being. How to preclude yourself from being disappointed, how to rely on yourself, how to find that inner strength. These are things that we'll be discussing during the course of today. And unfortunately, as you know from previous episodes, I had the whole rely on yourself concept thrust upon me when I was very young. My father was killed when I was 10 years old in a drug-related incident, and I was virtually on my own throughout my entire childhood, all the way through college. And that provided a series of almost insurmountable challenges, but it also provided me with the tenacity and grit that I welcome and I cherish to this day, because it saved my life many, many times. And really, this all begins, going back that far, with kind of building your inner strength and understanding that you've got to, once again, rely on your gut, go back to your instincts, and kind of drown out all the noise that is everybody else's opinion. You've heard me say this before as well. A wise man serves as his own counsel. It seems like everybody's got an opinion. Everybody loves to tell you what you need to do when they have barely a scratched surface of knowledge regarding your situation. This applies to being a parent. It applies to being a colleague or a boss. It applies to building a company, everything. And I'll tell you a quick story. So building this company where we're promoting Jaca Rare Sugar, everybody's an expert, right? They listen to your business model for 14 seconds, and then they tell you all this stuff you need to do. You need to do this. You need to do that. Well, I have a friend of mine. He's in his 80s. He is the world's largest provider of a particular food product. I'm not going to say what food product that is because I want to leave him anonymous, but he's the world's largest provider. He's been doing this for 60 years. Burger King worldwide is a client of his. Wendy's, McDonald's, worldwide clients of his. Any private label product for this food that you buy in Target, in Whole Foods, in Kroger, in Publix, they're his. And so this guy's worth probably $40 billion. He has forgotten more about providing a food in the consumer product goods space than I will ever know, hands down. So listens to my business model for 14 seconds, starts going, you need to do this, you need to do that, here's what you need to do, here's what you need to do. A would-be expert. Well, he was dead fucking wrong. He had absolutely no concept of my business model. I provide Jaca Rare Sugar and Jaca powered products in a direct-to-consumer model over the internet using e-commerce. My supply chain, the dynamics of my organization are completely different than his. He's got a shelf space play. He's got to worry about national distribution, regional distribution, national hauling, regional hauling, warehousing, out of stock, leakage, breakage, inventory management, couponing, point of sale, placement fees, slotting fees. He's got 1,000 bullshit archaic dynamics that he has to deal with in his model that I don't even need to have as a part of my vocabulary or nomenclature. God bless him. I listen to him, right? An entrepreneur's always got to have his listening ears on. I listen to what he has to say because, again, I may find some level of wisdom or some level of advice or insight through what he's saying. But for the most part, I do not defer to even the biggest supplier of a food product, which is in the bullseye of my space. I heard the same thing from big hedge fund guys. We're raising money with institutional investors. We closed our second round. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to do this. You need to do that. And I don't care if you see 1,000 business plans a day, 1,000 PPMs a day. Nobody knows my business better than I do. It's my job to have encyclopedic knowledge of this business, and I don't defer on any level. That is to say, I will evolve the plan. If I hear something that makes sense, I will evolve the plan in accordance with my original vision, but I'm not going to zig and zag all over the place just because this expert says that, and this would-be expert says this, and this guy says I got to do this, and this guy's been around forever, and he says I need to do that. Zigging and zagging in anything is death. Death in a startup is zigging and zagging. Death as you're listening to parenting advice is zigging and zagging. You've got to listen to your gut and your instincts and remain true to yourself. That's really the key. And the beauty of it is you don't have to have inherent knowledge that is all-inclusive day one. There's a key to the kingdom. There are thousands of keys to the kingdom as it relates to any subject matter, and those are books. There are books out there that have the ability to teach us everything we need to know about any subject matter. Now, I don't mean, this is the age of ChatGPT. I use AI, but there's a difference. ChatGPT gives you answers. It doesn't teach you anything. And in order to be really effective and rely on yourself and handle building your inner strength, which is really rule number one in the part of this health and well-being spectrum, you've got to learn in order to be effective. You've got to assimilate. You've got to build perspective. You've got to understand how to manage different dynamics that hit you. ChatGPT just gives you answers. And it's great in the short term, but it's not going to be a long-term play if we're really trying to be the best that we can be and we're really trying to rely on ourselves. And I'm telling you, books have saved my life countless times in every area of my world. You talk about Man's Search for Meaning, Dr. Viktor Frankl. He's a logotherapist. So logotherapy has to do with life, as opposed to Freud, who I think is a clown. I don't think everything reverts back to sex. I think that's nonsensical. As opposed to Pavlov, right? Conditioning. Maybe there's some component of that has some veins of truth. But I like Dr. Frankl because he talks about everything in relation to life, in relation to existence. And it changed my life. I read it in California when I was living out there building a software company when I was 30 years old. It changed my life. It's a short book. Highly recommend it. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I'm probably going to get assassinated in the comments for being toxic, for not saying non-binary people are from Mars and other cisgens are from Venus, but men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I read that book 2 times straight through before I got married, and it gave me the answers with regard to managing this whole new world for me as I was just setting out. It really talks about the differences in what drives men and what drives women. Men have caves, women have waves. It's one of my favorite quotes, and I'm going to ask you to look that up if you're interested. One of my favorite quotes from that book, and it is dead on. I actually had my daughter read it. She's in a long-term relationship with her boyfriend a few years now, and I told her to read it. Now, this book is, my daughter's 22, I was with my wife almost 25, so this is 25 years ago now. She read it, and she found herself texting me while she was reading it. Oh man, Dad, this is exactly what I do. She compartmentalized the Venus part, not just the Mars part. Oh man, Dad, I do this every time. Wow, Dad, I do this and it's not good. Wow, he does that every single time. He does the same thing they're saying in this book. It really was instrumental in helping her understand how to bracket in relationships. You talk about even fiction, The Fountainhead, Ayn Rand. Read it when I was 27 for the first time. It absolutely changed my life. I thought I was the only one that felt the way that Howard Roark did. And I'm not. And I can't recommend any book more fervently than I can recommend The Fountainhead, even though it's fiction, because it is a referendum on the world and the people that are in it. It's an amazing book. And then you look at, of course, Robert Greene, 48 Laws of Power, Mastery. You've heard me talk about Extreme Leadership with Babin and Willink. So there are just books upon books upon books out there that you can use to leverage your position in order to build that thick skin, in order to build that inner strength so that you can disregard the volumes of unsolicited opinions that you're receiving and trudge on forward and plod on forward. The second component of this self-reliance world is overcoming adversity on your own. You can only really rely on yourself when the situation gets tough. In fact, you're going to find that 99.9% of the people around you, including family, will abandon you when the going gets tough. And if you're going to challenge me on that, just think about the money component. How many people, if you went to right now and asked them for a loan, or you told them you needed some money, including people in your family, would give it to you? How many people? I don't know that it's that many. I've been there many times, and I know it's not that many for me. It's actually one out of hundreds. So the important thing to recognize is that you're going to have to overcome adversity by yourself. But the other really fundamental part of that is everything is an opportunity. So while you're relying on yourself, when your back is against the wall, and you've heard me say this before, that's when you become the most creative. That's when you figure out that you have a gear for resiliency and resourcefulness that you didn't even know you had. That's when things really start to define themselves with regard to your ability to manage situations. Whether you blow a situation completely up, you have nothing to lose at that point, and rebuild it in a new light. Whether you use this to extreme negotiate, because again, you've got nothing else to lose. Everything is an opportunity. Even a seemingly incidental email, if you don't like your particular position, is an opportunity to adjust. Even a seemingly incidental conversation with somebody in your family, your spouse, your significant other, your parents, your kids, even a seemingly insignificant conversation about a particular subject is an opportunity to recalibrate. And once you recognize that everything is an opportunity, and once you learn to love that fact, amor fati, I love my fate, I don't care what my situation is, I love it, then you really start to find that you've got productivity that is unbounded. And I had to do this again very early on in life, realizing that I only had myself and nobody else if I was going to persevere and make it out of the gutter on my own. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. And I don't think I can get into trouble 45 years later. But when I turned 16, you have the ability to go get a job. The smart thing, seemingly, would have been for me to go get a job as a bartender or a waiter, because you make tips. You typically can make more money doing those types of jobs than you can really anything else, especially when you're going to school. So you can't be out in the dirt digging trenches all day. You got to go to school. And that makes sense, right? Back then, I think minimum wage when I was 16 was $2.37 an hour, or $3.37 an hour, something like that. Well, conventional wisdom would have said that I should do that, but I had a fundamental problem that I needed to address. I needed to rely on myself to solve it. We weren't eating. We needed to eat at a base level. And I could have gone and made maybe the equivalent of $8 or $9 an hour, including tips, to be a server or to be a bartender. But I took the job making the $2.37 an hour at a grocery store in our town. And I'm not ashamed to admit this. I did what I had to do to feed myself and the people around me. I stole groceries. I stole meat. I stole cat food. We had a big rat problem, and the way you fixed the rat problem was with cats. So we had a bunch of cats to kill the rats. That was the only way you could manage it. Well, the cats had to eat other than the rats. And so cat food, meat, pasta. Back then, pasta was 3 pounds for $1. I remember it well. I did what I had to do, relying on myself to overcome adversity. Everything is an opportunity. Now, a lot has changed, of course, but I have no regrets. I had to power through it. I did what I had to do, and I'm not ashamed. It's like Winston Churchill said, right? If you're going through hell, keep going. And you always have to project a position of strength no matter what you're going through. You never, ever show your hand. One of the mantras in our household, my daughter and the people around me, is you never show your hand. Never let them see you sweat no matter what you're going through, because it weakens your position. And most of the time, people will use that against you and exploit you with it. It's Machiavellian, basically, right? You give people the appearance of what you want them to see, and you let only a very select few see really and truly who you are. That's Machiavellian in a nutshell, right? Never show your hand. So that's a really fundamental part of building that inner strength and overcoming adversity. And really the third component and the final component is understanding the dangers of dependency. You've got to remain independent within reason, right? Now, you can't get anywhere in life without relying on other people. I understand that. I know that. You can't do it all yourself. However, there are thresholds. And the degree to which you expose yourself and become dependent on people is the degree to which you are vulnerable and you have the opportunity to be exploited by people that have less than honorable intentions. And so what you do when you start to manage your independence is you don't set yourself up for disappointment and failure. I'm even finding that in this company right now. And it's unfortunate and it breaks my heart. That's true. It is what it is. The business world today is nothing like when I was coming up. When we were in our 20s coming up, we all wanted to be killers. We all wanted to be number one, and we fought tooth and nail within the ethical boundaries to become number one, working ad nauseum, true diligence, responsiveness. Now, my model right now, hire 5, fire 4. That's how bad it is. People don't want to work. They deliver C- D+ quality work, riddled with problems and errors and mistakes. And when I coach them on it, the second time they deliver, same errors and same problems. Don't care. Disappear for days. Going dark, not responding. I'm not going to tolerate that. I will keep firing people until I find a team of people that care about helping people with this organization. And it's the same thing when it comes to people in your family, the dangers of dependency. Depending on people too much. And I tell my daughter this all the time, since the time she was 10 years old. You can never rely on anybody more than you rely upon yourself, including me as your father, because I'm not going to be around forever. So we need to build that resiliency. And that's something that we took very seriously, the dangers of dependency and thwarting it. So we had another mantra, again, growing up with my daughter when I was raising her, started from the time when she was very young. She'd be 9 or 10 years old at this point. And she asked me a question and I tell her to go figure it out. Go figure it out, Kita. And did that mean that I abandoned her? Did that mean that I was a dick? Did that mean I was a bad father and I didn't support her? No, it meant none of those things. It meant completely that I will always be there to support her. I will answer a million questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I will help her in any way, shape, or form while she's figuring it out for herself, but I will not give her the answer. And that goes back to something at age 9 within her capacity at that time to handle something as simple as the remote control on the TV, changing it from the DVD player to regular TV on the remote control. 9-year-old should be able to handle that. So this is back way before, before kids had smartphones in their hand and they could figure out in 2 seconds. This is 20 years ago, 20 years ago, basically. So go figure it out. Press a bunch of buttons and figure it out. Ask me questions as it relates. Fast forward to the time she's 12, 13 years old, she's cutting the grass and she's got to use the weed whacker, right? Chores are a part of any child's life. They're going to learn to be resourceful and rely on themselves and resilient. Well, how to manage the choke on the weed whacker, right? How do you use the choke and get the weed whacker started? Tell her how to do it. Figure it out. Full choke, no choke, and everything in between. All the way up through today. Go figure it out, Kita. She asked me great questions. She asked me some not so great questions, but she builds perspective and she learns how to rely on herself. She's building her inner strength and she's overcoming adversity on her own. The 3 pillars of relying on yourself. And this goes back, for me, 40 years, not relying on even the false prophets, because that's another big part of this is beware the false prophets and the would-be experts. We talked a little bit about it with the food products guy, but I'm just talking about this from the standpoint of being dependent. When I was first getting into the gym when I was 16 to protect myself from the bullies to build strength, all the boys were lifting weights back then around 16 years old. Everybody had an opinion. You need to do this weight. You need to do these reps. You need to do these exercises. You need to do it this time of the day, blah, 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 blah. Well, I didn't take anybody's word for anything. I went and got myself the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who at the time was the King Daddy, the man, the only source of true knowledge with regard to weightlifting. And I read that book and I did what he told me to do because in accordance with my instincts, it made sense to me. And here was the major fundamental premise. And I've been challenged on this fundamental premise my entire life. I've been going to the gym for 45 years. High weight, low reps for bulk. Low weight, high reps to get ripped. That will never change. Lower number of reps, more weight to build bulk. I'm a little guy, 5'7", 155 pounds. I needed to build bulk. I wanted to build muscle. I wanted to get bigger. So I went heavier weights. Now, that even within that compartment, people are telling me, you need to do 8 reps, you need to do 10 reps, you need to do 12 reps. 4 reps. You're wasting your time, Pete. 4 reps is a waste. It's like you're not even doing it. That's stupid. You're an idiot. Blah, blah, blah. 4 reps is not enough. Well, I've done 4 reps my whole life, 45 years later. I've got powerlifting championships on a regional level. And the only reason I didn't go to nationals was because I blew out my shoulder when I was 37. I'm still going to the gym 45 years later, and I think I look pretty good. Where are all these guys that were giving me advice and telling me what to do? Who knows? Who cares? I deferred to no one. I read what Schwarzenegger told me. I applied it to my instincts, and I served as my own counsel. And it's done me pretty good over the years. The other thing, I'll give you another quick example as we finish up, is tennis. Knew nothing about tennis. As you know, my daughter was a top 15 tennis player in the United States before she got recruited to play D1 on a full ride. Knew nothing about tennis. It's a rich person's sport. I grew up poor. Watched, listened, observed. You've heard me say this in other episodes. Seeing what the IMG coaches are doing, because, you're in a compartment with these people. You're in a bubble with these people for 4 to 15 days every week at tennis tournaments all over the country. You see the same kids, you see the same parents, you see the same coaches. So you have the ability, you're eating lunch next to them in the restaurants, you're staying at the same hotels with them, you're on the tennis courts with them all day. You have the ability to learn, steal thunder, pay attention. I listen to the IMG coaches. I listen to the parents who are former pro tennis players. We grew up with Mary Jo Fernandez's son. She's married to Federer's agent. So what are they, $200 million? He's a billionaire. Mary Jo Fernandez, you see her every weekend. Her son played tennis. One of the best women's tennis players in history. Listen to what she said and how she coached her kid. JJ Roddick, one of the Roddicks, I think he's a nephew, came up with Roddick. Emma Navarro, who's on the tour right now, playing really well. Emma Navarro is only a few years older than Keita. When Keita made it to the quarterfinals of the National Hardcourt Championships in the 16s, I think Emma was in the finals of the 18s. So we're right on top of these people. But they were doing stuff that did not make sense to me. I served as my own counsel. And this went all the way up through her freshman year at Illinois, where she got up there and was with a strength trainer who I couldn't stand. This strength trainer had these kids doing front squats, long bar with big plates. First of all, free weight squats with a long bar is the worst possible exercise you can do, because it's not a matter of if your knee blows out, it's a matter of when your knee blows out. Not to mention the fact that these kids are stomping 3,000 times on a concrete tennis court a day with their knees, playing tennis, practicing every day. Horrible idea, made no sense, horrible, hated it. But because, again, I had perspective from figuring it out myself, from overcoming adversity myself, from understanding what makes sense and what doesn't make sense myself. But I had to take it to another level with tennis in order to compete. We're from Lower Alabama, no academies, no coaches, competing against the best in the country. So I borrowed theories and notions from every sport. I borrowed practice matches from the UFC and boxing. I found that these kids, these young girls, were fading in the second sets in a best of 3 match. They were all fading, getting tired. You could see their footwork would go to crap. Their mental acuity would wane, and they'd start to make more unforced errors, including my daughter. How do I fix that? I need her to have them gas through the second set. Boxing. When you're boxing, training for a 12-round fight, you spar for 15 rounds. UFC. When you're training for a 3-round fight, you spar for 5 rounds. That's how you get your gas through 3 full or through 12 full. Well, immediately upon recognizing that, I had my daughter start playing 3 full set practice matches, not best of 3. She's probably the only junior in the country doing that. 3 full sets at 110-degree heat in Lower Alabama. And within a week, she was mentally more acute, smarter, and had more gas than all these other girls on the court. And she started whipping them because she could hold it together through a second set and a third set tiebreaker. Transcendental meditation. Phil Jackson, coach of the Bulls, big into meditation and finding your center. Had my daughter start doing yoga with meditation as a big part of that, visualizing the points, visualizing the strokes in order to build that strength and carry it out with her onto the court. Game film analysis, NFL, NBA. A lot of these tennis players, they all record their matches, and then the parents give the film to the coach, and the coach looks at it, and he analyzes it and says, oh, we need to do that. We need to do this. I didn't do that. My daughter was smart enough to know when she wasn't using her footwork properly, or when she wasn't swinging low to high, or when her serve toss wasn't high enough. So I had her watch the matches by herself And I put together a 3-page template to help her analyze her matches, when she was fading, when she was strong, how she was reacting in tiebreakers under pressure, what the other kid was doing in reaction to her reaction. So there were things that I did to make her better where I was only deferring to myself as it relates to the sport of tennis when I knew nothing about tennis. But again, inner strength, overcoming adversity across these other kids that had unlimited funds, unlimited coaching, unlimited facilities. I had to make myself my own expert. That's what you have to do in life. You need to become an expert parent, an expert spouse, an expert colleague, an expert boss, an expert entrepreneur, an expert at what you do. And the way to do that is to rely on yourself, build your inner strength, overcome adversity on your own, understand the dangers of the dependency and stay independent, and create for yourself a repository of data based upon learning, truly learning the subject matter, researching it, understanding it, and making it a part of you using trial and error, knowing that every day is your birthday. You may screw up 10 days in a row as you're trying to execute, but every day is your day of birth and you can start over and you can try it again. I've done it a million times, failed a million times, happy to fail. You learn when you lose. That's where we all want to be, is just continuing to get better through the trials and tribulations, the ebbs and flows of this lifetime. Once again, I've enjoyed speaking with everybody. I hope you have a great day, and I'll look forward to sharing my thoughts with you again. Cheers. Okay, everyone. That brings to a close another episode of the SuperSelf podcast series brought to you by Jaca Rare Sugar. Here, we're going to be helping you discover the truth for all things that surround good health and well-being. We'll be offering you statistical data, clinical trial information that has been evaluated and corroborated so that you can see for yourself that we say what we mean and we mean what we say. Now, while the SuperSelf series is brought to you technically by Jaca Rare Sugar, I don't care if you buy the sugar. I really don't. That's not what this is about. This is about operating as the conscience across the food and beverage industry, across the health and well-being industry, which includes supplements, fitness trainers, and the like. Our goal is to provide you with the stepping stones for your own research, where you can go out and corroborate the things that we say on your own. See for yourself what it means to find a good quality of life that fits in alongside your current lifestyle or your family's lifestyle. I think it's really going to be interesting and fascinating if we take this journey together. And once again, our goal is not just to provide you with data, but to keep it interesting. I've been living a clean lifestyle for 40 years now. I've been going to the gym for almost 45 years, eating clean for 40 years. And so we're going to have a ton of stories along the way about the foibles, the successes, and the failures, but we're also going to provide you with the information that you need to carry on and carry forward. Think about subscribing. We'd love it if you subscribe to us, pass this on to your friends. I think we've got a lot of edgy and interesting podcasts that are upcoming, and we certainly will look forward to any feedback that you want to provide. Until next time, cheers.